In 2009, The Hangover was released to critical acclaim and has since been seen as one of the best comedies of the 21st century. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime type of comedies we saw in the 2000s like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Superbad. The difference between this movie and those ones is that instead of leaving this film as is, they decided to capitalize on the success and make a sequel. It was super hyped, sold more than the original film at the box office, but it received less than stellar reviews. The issue most people see from this sequel is that it is beat for beat the same movie as the previous one. In rewatching it, not only is that not the only thing wrong with it, but to me, it isn't even the worst thing the sequel has to offer. So sit back and let me tell you why the Hangover sequels failed. To me, the biggest reason why The Hangover 2 failed was that Alan is so fucking annoying I can't even put into words. Like, in the first film, Alan was a man-child, but he was at least a likable person. In this movie, they used the
"Oh, you know what? Next week's no good for me. The Jonas Brothers are in town."
and made that his only character trait in the sequel. He straight up went from man-child to man-baby. They flanderized the fuck out of him, and it gets to a point where I can't stand any scene he's in. In the first film, I believed he was a dork and out of touch with reality, but at least he was relatable in some aspects and isn't a pain to sit through. In this film, they wanted to go full-on comedy on every single line he says, and it gets really, really annoying and tiring. But it gets even more tiring when 95% of what he says isn't funny. My theory is that Zach Galifianakis was not nearly as popular as he was when The Hangover 1 came out, but when it did, he was the star of the show, and they had to do everything to capitalize on that. They made every single joke go through him. Every insane thing went straight through him, when in the first film, they did it for all of them. His reason for drugging them as well is entirely weak in this film. The first film was a simple mix-up where he thought he was giving them ecstasy, while in this one he wants to get back at Stu's future brother-in-law Teddy for some reason that, for the life of me, I can't fucking figure it out, and he mixes shit there. If I'm being honest, I think this film would have worked if they went to Bangkok and Alan was the one who was missing. I know it would piss off the die-hard Zach Galifianakis fans, but it would have made for a much, much better movie. They didn't have Doug in the first movie, and they do the exact same in this one, which is kind of lame. But maybe make him the third guy in this situation and have them try to find Alan. Having someone who is a man-child on the loose in Bangkok would have made for a much more interesting movie. You can replace the scene where they went to the tattoo shop and we see Stu saying "fuck the police" and replace it with Alan doing something stupid. And better yet, go to different locations and have them show videos of Alan so all the Zach Galifianakis fans can get some comedy. But instead, we get annoying piece of shit. They not only said fuck you to his character development, but they also fucked up Stu's development as well. The only thing that is going for him is that he's getting married now, and he's finally found something better than his last girlfriend. Too bad they turned him back to the soft person he was at the beginning of the first film. It makes it even worse because the grand finale of the previous film was him standing up to his bitch of a girlfriend, but now he's back to being the same passive person he was at the beginning. I also don't get how he isn't friends with Alan after the events of the first film. At the end of the first movie, he and Alan are enjoying a beer and then they go and have a nice bro dance. I mean, I want to be friends with the Alan from the sequel, but the Alan in the first movie is not always an annoying sack of shit. Stu just forgets it and they don't really speak until the events of the sequel, which is 2 years after the first film. I was thinking they would have at least kept in touch through Doug, but it doesn't even seem that way. It all feels like Alan needed to be obsessive over them since the night for the laughs when they all should have stayed in touch in the first place. Now, they made a mistake with this film, but not a financial one, so everyone was brought back for a third movie. Now, what setting will they be in now, and how will they get hungover this time? And the answer is, no one gets hungover. Like, no one gets drunk at all in this film. Nothing. Instead, we get an action-adventure comedy with the title The Hangover. I know they wanted to distance themselves from the previous two films and do something completely different, but they went total 180 different route with this one. Financially, it was the worst one, But after that $100 million budget they used to make it, they made $200 million back. So there was still an incredible audience. If you thought Alan was annoying in the sequel, you are not ready for how over the top, annoying, and unfunny he is in this film. And this is not Zach Galifianakis' fault, because he's truly a really funny guy when given the right material, and he's just naturally a funny person. It's just they take the man-child and man-baby shit to a whole new level here. The film once again takes a page from the first two films and completely takes Doug out of the picture. I just for once want to see him do something in the franchise. Like, I just really want to. In this film, I honestly wish they got Hangover and again did what I said they should have done for the second one, and make Alan the one that's missing. It would actually work much better in this film because Alan is the center of attention in the first act of the film, so him going missing would be just absolutely breathtaking and I think would make a much better film than an action-adventure comedy. Mr. Chow also takes center stage in this film, which he gets the same treatment as Alan. Not really full-on Flanderized, but it's because he takes center stage, he becomes really fucking annoying. He was funny in the first two films because there was less of him, so his craziness stood out from everyone else. But in this film, it's taken to a whole other fucking level. He seems to do weird and crazy shit for weird and crazy shit's sake. But in the first film, he never had to do that to show the audience how weird and crazy he was. He just chows down dog food and sniffs Stu's ass for literally no fucking reason just because he's weird. This film really isn't anything special. I think it's better than the sequel by a landslide, but it's still a very average and bland movie. Its title as a hangover film is laughable because once again, they don't get hungover. I mean, they do, but it's in the post-credit scene, and it's only for about a minute, and is probably the funniest thing from the movie. I know they wanted to stray away from the first two films because that's why people hated the second one, but that's why they shouldn't have made a sequel in the first place. It's not like The Hangover is high art, as I'd put some of those other top-tier comedies of the 2000s ahead of it, but it still should be in that conversation. It's now been reverted to just a minor footnote in the comedy scene when it should have been much more than that. These sequels, especially the second one, just brought down The Hangover 1 to just nothing. This isn't like a Grown Ups 1 to Grown Ups 2 type of decline because Grown Ups 1 was already a dog shit movie, so Grown Ups 2 is not that much worse. This is like hitting a home run to the next game getting a perfect game thrown against you. Hangover 3, however, is just a forgettable and annoying conclusion to a series that didn't need any sequels. It took the advice from the critics and went way overboard with trying to make it as different as possible. Too bad when your movie title is called The Hangover, you can't really stray away from that concept no matter how many sequels you make. It once again demonstrates why The Hangover should not have had any sequels and it should have just been a standalone movie.